Hello, good morning, everyone. Very nice to see you all here at the second online user event of the RM Framework project. Let's wait 1 more minute so that everyone can join, and then we will jump into this session as well. We already have our fantastic speakers on board, and as I see, already more than 40 attendees. Thanks again for coming and for your interest towards the project. All right, so once again, good morning to everyone. Those who haven't met yet, my name is Virág Zsár, and I'm based in Hétfal Research Institute in Hungary. We are partners in the RM Framework project. And as you see here, currently we are running the second user event of this project, where we try to introduce the handbook that is being prepared in the project from the view of how it can be used in HR systems and how it can be integrated into HR systems in order to advance career pathways and professional development opportunities for research managers. Just to give you a glimpse about the aim of these events, basically what we want to do is to present our project results and discuss it with practitioners, with the community, in order to get feedback, in order to validate what we are doing, whether we are on the right track, what could be improved, how could be improved, in order to ensure that at the end, what we will come up with will be useful and will be possible to be integrated into different institutional settings across the European research area. We have plenty of events of this kind for this year. We already had one, the launching event, so to say, in February, that was dedicated primarily to research managers and the RM Roadmap ambassadors. And now we primarily invited those colleagues who are based in research performing organizations and who are dealing with human resource issues, human resource related recruitment processes or career path, or advising on careers, on professional development opportunities, and so on and so forth. On the left-hand side, you see the upcoming events, which will be online with regards to their main topic, which will be addressed, and also the main target groups that we are aiming to reach out. So the audience with whom we try to get engaged in a kind of dialogue for the sake of promoting our project results, but also validating them. On the right-hand side, you can see that we will have also a couple of offline user events. Sorry for the mistake. So these will be held in person in the given countries that you can see here. Basically, we just had the first one in Germany last week, and then more will come up. The next one is planned to be in Hungary, then in Portugal, Spain, Czech Republic, and all the other partner countries. And at the end of the project, we will have a final outreach event, a final public event with a broad participation of our audiences. So if you want to learn more about all these activities that we are running and where you can basically join and where you can engage, please check out our website and our social media as well. And if you start to follow the podcast series, you can also learn more about all these outputs that are preparing, because there are fantastic interviews with our colleagues. And now, after this introductory talk, I would like to invite our first speaker, Nick Claassen, who is Managing Director at ERMA, the European Association of Research Managers and Administrators, to introduce the project briefly to set the ground for today's event. Nick, the floor is yours.
Super, thank you, Virak. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to give you a bird's eye overview of the project idea, and how it fits into the bigger picture in about 10 minutes. I'd like to start before I share my slides. Like to start off, where is this positioned, right? And especially also where is this positioned in regards to HR. We have this group of people, right? Research managers or research managers and administrators, support staff, advisors, that have been active in RPOs, RFOs, other types of organizations for quite a while, right? That is working, that is performing, and so on, but that never really had, let's say, a recognized profession up to this point. So we as IARMA, many other partners, stakeholders have been working at this to make this a good setup in the future. And that's why I think it's crucial also that the HR department and HR managers and everybody to do with HR and leadership also takes good note of this, although that has very much been done also by quite a few of you also through our sister project, the Cardea project, which comes very much from that angle as well. So that's the situation, and we are very happy that with the last policy agenda, ERA policy agenda, so European Research Area policy agenda, and the current one, there is an action on research management, also stating the need for upskilling and recognition. So that's a bit where we are positioned, of going from this group of professionals that is there, that is performing, that is growing, that is helping to manage the complexities, but their reality is determined extremely locally, right? And this is, for example, what they should do, how much they should do, what their qualifications should be, is often determined by maybe one even research unit within a bigger group or within a university. Sometimes it's better across the university or other research performing or funding organizations or some other bodies, or at the national level even, but often it's not really a research management category, but some sort of other administrative category. And sometimes when that category is there, it's not really with the right setup. So we want to make sure that there is this European profession, that there is this recognition, partnering with very much as a project, and we're underlying as a project to this ERA policy agenda. So we want to make sure that we get to a better place. A lot of work has been done in RM Roadmap and Cardea within this ERA policy agenda by different actors, coming to much more information for policymaking purposes on the one hand, but also coming to a very nice outcome, which is the RM Comp, so skills and competency framework, which was adopted by the European Commission at the end of January 2025. So let's say we're now about 14 months later. And what our project is aiming to do, and I'll go into my slides as well. What our project is aiming to do is to, yeah, just a moment. Now you see my desktop, I think, and then we'll be good if yeah, I think we're now in the right space. What our project is trying to do is broaden this framework and extend this framework to go from skills and competency framework to a number of other anchor points that we have at the European level, and go to better set up training, education, but also that would lead into job descriptions and more, I don't want to say standardization because it's not that, but more interoperability. So more similar roles across Europe in research management. And as you understand my story, you understand also very much why HR departments, managers, actors are crucial to this whole setup. So the project overview, we're trying to create an open and sustainable European qualification system. So we're trying to go from RM Comp to recognized, certified, high quality training, right? And with that, of course, come a lot of other questions on who are these professionals, to which we have and now also a base and answers, and what are their job descriptions, and what are the different types of research managers and administrators, because as you know, it's more of an umbrella term. There's policy advisors in this group. There are project managers, data stewards, funding advisors, and so on and so on. So there's quite a lot of different profiles. So we're trying to get this from that place of, let's say, the basis to the training. But To be able to do that, we have set up a number of activities within our project, within the different work packages. Our project is 2 years, so we're trying to go quickly from, let's say, RM Comp and the other anchor points that we have and deliver quite quickly, so quite short project with 12 partners from 8 countries in a work package 1, where we're looking at the training offering that is there and bringing in, the outcome of that is mainly a handbook on how to organize training based on RM Comp training and education, a quality label to show indeed that training providers are in fact using it, and then pilot testing to ensure that we also create something that will be viable, that will be usable. Work package 4 is about the communication and dissemination, which this of course is part of this webinar, and then the project management itself. The timeline, we're pretty much halfway, a bit over halfway. So we have started, of course, mapping what is there, everything that we needed to get from other projects and stakeholders, although we continue to do that, of course. And we have come to the point of pilot testing, right? So we have a handbook, which is there in draft in some past events we did here. For now, that's not being publicly circulated, it's being pilot tested at the moment. Also, the quality label is still very much being discussed, what it will exactly be and how it will exactly look. So on that, we can't give a lot of additional detail at this time. So 3 key results, which I already said. A handbook, right? How do you go from RM Comp? And Niklas will be, I think, giving a presentation in more detail on how that can happen. And also, it's a bit more complex or a bit bigger than that, but a handbook for developing high quality training programs for research managers, a quality label to show the ones or people who are doing that, and pilot testing both that quality label and handbook to be viable, good, let's say, outcomes, good products that can be used. So that's the main setup of our project. We're, of course, trying to reach out as broadly as possible with online, offline events, which were already highlighted by Virak as well, and engaging with policymakers and institutional leaders, HR offices to push for this professional recognition. In the end, it's about taking this group of people, making sure they're educated in the right way with the right setup, the right career paths, the right job descriptions, getting to a place where they can work better, function better. We think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit to reinforce R&I systems across Europe. So we'll also, of course, deliver a number of policy recommendations and advocating that this standardized, in the end, training will be there, that there will be more interoperability, so better collaboration and more synergies across Europe. That's, in the end, also very much the goal. If you want to deep dive, we've got a lot of resources everywhere, including a podcast, but also other resources. So please do check that out. And I think there you can get at length, I think, hours and hours of what we are doing exactly in the project. With that, I want to thank you for your attention and hope I've been able to show also what the trajectory is, how this fits in, right? Going from this basis, this anchor point, this knowledge base that we have developed in the past, not just us as an association or as a project, but let's say the whole movement, going from that based on RMComp, very much creating this framework to go to good training, good education, which will lead with the correct steps, which will lead to better interoperability, better synergies, and better career paths for research managers, and in the end, more impact on the R&I system, a positive impact there. So I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nick, for the very brief but still very detailed presentation from the view of the content and our main aims. Before I give the word to Niklas, I would like to ask the participants to join us through Mentimeter as well, because I will have 2 questions which are dedicated to you, in order to get a better understanding on your background as well, to see where you are coming from and what is your knowledge base with regards to the main topic of this user event. So as I see here, colleagues are joining very quickly. The first question is about your organization. So in what kind of organization you are based in. Is it a university, research institute, company, NGO, governmental body, or any other type of entity? What we have seen when we were doing the previous project, just to give you an idea, is that basically, of course, research managers and administrators are mainly based in universities, research institutions, but we also managed to reach out other types of entities as well. So like research funding bodies, governmental bodies, NGOs, companies. Now I think we are clearly in line with our general statistics regarding the participants' background. So most colleagues are joining us from a research institute or from a university. All right. And one more question that is related to the RM Comp, the European Competence Framework for Research Managers, because as you might know, our handbook has very strong connections to that. And of course, more details will be introduced by Niklas. So we would be interested about your knowledge and about your relation to RM Comp. Okay, as I see, most people had already had an eye on it. So you at least downloaded it, you started to check it. Some colleagues are even using occasionally, but still it's a minority who is using it regularly, although it's growing, I think, and as the time will pass, it will definitely grow. Okay, so having this short intervention, now I would like to give the floor to Niklas Rauterberg, who is joining us from the Center for Higher Education, which is based in Germany, and which organization is responsible for the elaboration of the handbook. And Niklas will give a lot of very useful insights for us about this handbook. Niklas, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you see the presentation first of all?
Yes.
Perfect, that's great. Okay, so now I will talk a little bit about the RM Framework Handbook. And first of all, I want to mention my colleagues that have been working with me on the handbook. That is Professor Dr. Frank Ziegele, Melanie Rischke, Henning Rickelt, and Anna Röhren-Weigelt. We have two colleagues from the ZWM that are also contributing to the handbook as well. So like it's a little bit of a co-creation exercise between the two institutions, but we are mainly responsible for most of the handbook, let's say. What do I want to talk about today? First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the purpose of the handbook, and hopefully I can show benefits for the HR managers. There's 3 points I want to show here. That is how EU tools can be used in practice, specifically the RM competence framework, criteria of good research management training, and a little bit of an overview for the training development process guide we have in the handbook. And lastly, I will talk about the timeline of the handbook delivery. But I think this already was talked about Nick when he showed the graphic, how the whole project is situated. But I will briefly give an overview about that as well. So first of all, let me start with the, let me start with the purpose of the handbook. So the main aim is to support training providers in research management in developing new training programs or adapt existing training programs to meet high quality standards. To achieve this, we did several things in the handbook. We described good practice criteria. We suggest formal standards for training development. We have the training development process guide, a methodology specifically for competences and learning outcomes based on the target group that is tied very closely knit to the RM competence framework. I will talk about that a little bit more in the next coming slides. And we already know that as Nick mentioned, there's like a growing recognition of the profession, but at the same time, it's very different still in all of the countries in Europe. And I think what is very important is that this handbook will not really be a one-size-fits-it-all solution. We try to have parts useful for every situation, so to speak, but it's not that we like give specific answers to all of the questions that can be out there. I would say this is the general idea we try. But nevertheless, we still want to contribute to the standardization and recognition of training programs within the profession. This is still the main goal, but yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits for HR managers. First of all, I want to talk about the RM competence framework that was mentioned before and how we tried to use it in the handbook to make it a little bit more operational, I would say. For those who have not heard much about the RM competence framework, we have these 7 competence areas, cognitive abilities, and so on and so on. I don't want to list them all right now. We have 50 competences and 800 learning outcomes along 4 proficiency levels from foundational, intermediate, advanced to expert. And when we looked at the competence framework, we realized that 800 learning outcomes are quite a lot to work with, and that probably in day-to-day business, there's rarely the time to read all of these 800 learning outcomes. So we decided that we need a new clustering for this. There is already a clustering here in the competence framework, but we wanted to do it a little bit differently that is more useful and practical, I would say. And so we used the results from another former project, the RM Roadmap project, and there we have a list of research management areas. These are the 12 research management areas that have been done have been decided upon in the RM Roadmap project. We have research strategy and policy development, proposal development, project support, science communication, translation of results, managing information and related functions, research support delivery, training, research and development, research ethics and integrity, international collaboration, research infrastructure management, research data information, and intellectual property management. And these areas also had in the RM competence framework a list of skills and competences with them. But what is missing is learning outcomes for proficiency levels, so to speak. So that's why we decided that we want to combine these 2 projects together and create a list of competences for each of the 12 areas that are based on the RM competence framework. So that when you have an area, let's go back to the areas, for example, research strategy and policy development, you have a list of competences that are relevant for research strategy and policy development based on the RM competence framework, so that for each of the competences to have learning outcomes in the 4 different proficiency levels. So that's the basic idea. And what we hope is that this helps to identify custom learning pathways and also create specific job profiles that could also, for HR managers, for example, be used to describe a vacancy or to describe a position and so on. That's the basic idea. We talk a little bit more about this in the podcast episode because to explain this in more detail would take quite a lot of time. So if you're interested in this, I would suggest you definitely should listen to the podcast episode because we try to describe this in a little bit more detail there. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, and by the way, if you have questions to this afterwards, I'm happy to answer all of these questions if you want to. Now, I think the second thing I want to talk about is the good practice criteria for research management trainings. Because I also feel like that this is quite important for HR managers, and this goes also along the way of creating career pathways and identifying specific skill gaps and so on. There are more good practice criteria in the handbook as I've listed here. I've just picked the 6 most important ones, I feel like. And one thing we find very important is competence alignment, and because that specifically helps you in closing specific skill gaps with a training. We also think that project and case-based methodology is quite important for research managers specifically, because it gives access to tools and solutions that can be used in real research management situations. Nowadays, probably a blended and modular learning approach is most of the time very important. Obviously, not all trainings can be blended or modular learning trainings, but it is important to think about the workload that the target group already has. And research managers tend to have quite a high workload. So a blended and modular approach is oftentimes the thing that is the only thing that is possible for the target group to actually participate in trainings in. Another important aspect is mentoring and peer-to-peer learning. We had projects in the past where we created research management trainings, and this was one of the parts that always was the participants liked that one best, so to speak, because it gives it helps for tricky daily challenges and gives solution. It can help getting solutions for that, and also the possibility to learn from others on the job. We feel like this is especially important if it's a training that is in like an international context where you have people from different countries, because different countries have quite different solutions to research management problems, and there can be quite a high gain learning from other countries or people from other institutions in other countries that have a different experience, so to speak. One thing we find very important, and also one thing the handbook is for, is to have a transparency of credentials, or so let's say promote a transparency of credentials. It can be badges, certificates, ECTS, but important is to make the learning visible and portable for career moves and recognition across institutions. Another thing, or the last thing I want to mention here, is the sustainable quality assurance and continuous improvement of a training. We think that matters because research management is an area that is developing quite fast. So trainings have to adapt to new challenges in the profession. And we also think that incorporating feedback from a training that has been successful to do it even better the next time is also quite an important aspect of good, or an aspect of good trainings, yes. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about is the training development process guide. We have 3 stages in this training development process guide, and the training planning, the training development, and the training management. And we see all these 3 as an improvement cycle, so to speak. So that when you are done with the training and it has been successful, that there's always something you can learn to provide and do for the next one. But I want to talk a little bit about what this training process guide is actually about. In the training planning stage, it's all about making smart decisions before anything is built. And the goal is to understand what needs the target group has, who exactly the training is aimed at, what success looks like. It's also important to define the frame of the program. That's, for example, is it an online course, a blended program, or on-site trainings? It's important to involve key stakeholders, leadership, partner organizations, experts, and also checking the resources. It's do you have the right people, time, tools, and budget to deliver the training? And I think one of the most important aspects is probably the business model. If it's a training, we have seen in research management, we have seen a lot of trainings that have been funded before and then disappeared again because they're just not a sustainable business model. And I think this is also quite important. In the handbook, we have several smaller detailed steps, for example, for training planning. And for each of these steps, we have a set of guiding questions, so to speak, or reflecting questions. So it's not like we give an answer to exactly this is how a training should look like and not in any other way, but only this, because trainings can look so different across all of Europe and institutions that it's impossible to give one solution for all of this. So instead, we tried to have some sort of guiding questions you should think about when building a training. That's the basic idea. And then as a training provider, you can decide, do you need this or will you not need this? The next thing I want to talk about is the training development. This is where the actual program is built, and the focus here is on turning needs into learning experiences, creating an instructional design, define learning outcomes, and then after defining the learning outcomes, decide on the methods that you need to reach them. Also, how will the process be measured? And building the learning materials, selecting the trainers, setting up the learning environment, the classroom, an online platform. And also, if there's a formal recognition needed, for example, will there be an accreditation for the training course or so on. And then we have the training management. And this is about actually delivering the training. like the rollout, supporting the trainers, managing the logistics, the communication, make sure everything runs smoothly, and evaluate the training, gather the feedback from the participants, review the training, and decide on what could change for the next iteration. That's also what I mean by the improvement cycle. So we think this is important to, first of all, build trainings or also identify good trainings. I think this will also help, as well as the good practice criteria, to identify good trainings, and specifically how a training can be useful for people in your own institution. And I think that's something that for HR managers is oftentimes quite important to realize. How can we provide training or methods to really help the people choosing their own career path and developing that? The last thing I want to talk about is the timeline of the handbook delivery. We are in the pilot testing phase, as Nick already mentioned. Then we will have a feedback integration very soon, and then the final handbook delivery will be in December 2026. And so for now, this is all I want to talk about. So thank you all for your attention, and I think we can open the floor to questions really soon.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Niklas, for the very thoughtful presentation. Till colleagues think about their questions, I have still 2 questions on the Menti. So just get there quickly. So one question which is very much relating to the presentation, and it helps us to provide a feedback as well. What is the most common form of professional development for research managers in your organization? So I mean, how you, your colleagues, can ensure that they can advance in their profession, they can learn new things, they can specialize their knowledge and things like that. So there are multiple options like conference participation, internal trainings, external trainings, online learning courses, informal trainings, either peer learning, mentoring, or whether the case is that there are no structured professional development opportunities available. So what I see so far is that the conference participation is the most frequent, but also external trainings are super relevant. What is interesting that, many colleagues are going for online learning courses, and there are also colleagues who are saying that there are no structured professional development available, which is also possible. That, I mean, you can go to conferences, you can go to external trainings mainly randomly, why there isn't any clear frame, there isn't any clear path. So basically, as Niklas also said, what the aim of the handbook is also to help in this field. So to help either framing internal training, either see where are these knowledge gaps, competence gaps, or how to structure professional development for research managers. And one very last question, which is again related to this, and it asks your agreement or disagreement. So based on the presentation that you have learned now, what do you think, to what extent can the RM handbook improve your approach to support RM staff development or career planning? Oops, but I see that there is a bit difference. Somehow the options are not visible. So probably we cannot run this. I'm sorry for that. Short mistake. Somehow there were several options, but unfortunately they are not visible. So given that, I'm super sorry for that. We cannot get your feedback in this manner, but then, as said earlier, we will open the floor to your questions. So please raise your hand. Yes, Niklas, please.
I've seen one question like in the chat
one,
already. For volunteering,
people see it actually. Just somehow we cannot see it here. So I mean, if you
that's not what I mean. Sorry. I mean, if there was one question in the chat I would like to answer before we go into the open floor. The pilot testing is already started, and we have selected specific institutions. Our work package 3 was mainly responsible for that. And so there's not a possibility at the moment to be part of the pilot testing. Like this is already underway for quite a while. So sadly, that's not possible anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now please raise your hand if you want to ask any questions, and then we will ask our presenters to get back to this. I see one raised hand, but it is there since the beginning, so I'm not sure that that it's still valid. But if there are any other questions, please raise your hand. And till that, I am also having one question. So probably it is also not clear to everyone that given the fact that you have restructured the competence areas of RM comp to make it more aligned to the RM roadmap survey results, what can we expect for the future? So I mean, what practitioners should stick to? I mean, whether there will be any updates on any sides regarding RM comp or any other materials that can help better them to get a full picture and to better integrate them into the policies, inter-institutional policies or organizational procedures. Niklas, could you address this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the one thing we try to do in the handbook, like to make this a little bit more accessible. And I think what we also will have in the handbook is quite a few practical examples where this is actually be used. That's what we do in the pilot testing right now. So I'm not sure if this can be something that is be available for the policy policy level, but it's something that individuals can use. For example, we will have practical examples for people who design trainings for specific target groups, and they will describe the process and how they thought about this and how this aligns with what we do in the handbook. And I think this can be quite helpful for the on process and also for like incorporating the competences and learning outcomes from the framework into the handbook. Because obviously the RM competence framework, even though it has 800 learning outcomes, it will probably not have a learning outcome specific that is correct or useful for every situation. And in these practical examples, we will also ask the people what competences they feel are missing and how would they define other learning outcomes for their participants. So we will also show examples of how to change it, how to adapt it to their specific needs for a specific situation, I would say. So this will hopefully make it very easy to use and practice and give helpful insights to how to adapt and change it for the own specific situation.
Thank you, Niklas. Nick, do you want to add on anything?
Maybe I add just a few points to this. One thing too, which was also implied or said, I think, is the sort of the updating of or potential changes. So all of this is sort of being developed and in flux, right? Obviously the framework, right? But also RM comp and the whole profession is moving. The policy context is moving. So this is subject indeed to change. The concrete application of this indeed is we're trying to make it a practical tool that can be used, right? And which underpins then also the policy. The practical use of this, how will that come to be? That depends also on the people who adopt it and who provide this training. But indeed, and also answering to a question I see there already also in the chat, it will be up to the training providers. IARMA will launch a type of, will launch its academy next month, so in April, which will be a common training, of course. It's a type of common training. There are many, many different types for many different types of research managers. So this will be based on RM Comp and coming next month, and many other people will work with it as well. And the handbook should be a very good tool to be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, Niklas?
Yeah, the other question I see is when would this be available to use? Hopefully, if everything goes well, the handbook will be available by the end of the year. And we will share the results on the RM Framework website. And probably we will also have the handbook as itself, but also the practical examples of different institutions separately, so that you don't have one big document where everything is in, but that you can pick and choose which of the results is best usable. And hopefully this will all be available on the website by the end of the year. At least this is the plan, I think.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the chat. Basically, you have already replied this, but there is also a nice one from Maria Jose Marino. Maria, if you want to address it orally, you can also do that. Otherwise, I can read it out.
I think Nick already answered that, right?
Yes, but I mean, will it be possible to dream in a common European training? So I mean, this is
dream, yes, for sure. A version of this we're launching in any case. Maria, do you want to come and say it verbally? Is that why you're saying yes, please?
Or just Maria, you can unmute yourself
or
and
to
you can
read it out.
Question. Maria, can you unmute yourself? And then you can ask your question. Otherwise, I've also seen a question from Bruno when you raised your hand. So if you have any specific questions, Bruno, you can also share it. Okay, in theory, Maria, you could.
No, she said in the chat also she can't talk right now.
I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, but in any case, can we dream of a common European training? Yes. At a certain level. Are we there? No. Although we are, like I said, launching the RM Academy, and in that we will have RM Comp-based training for Europeans, also free and open access with a paid-for certification if for those who choose to do it. So in that sense, yes. Does that cover all of the training needs structurally across Europe? No, but indeed that's what we're moving towards. But will always be, of course, a combination of certain trainings at the European level, European profession that we're trying to build, but the profession and the training and so on will all be dependent on also the local context and the national context going forward as well. But hopefully through this and through having this quality label and through having RM Comp and so on, we will get, let's say, much more conversions, much more interoperability, that it looks closer or it looks more like each other across the different countries.
Thank you, Nick. Meanwhile, we got the question from Bruno as well in the chat. So he had a thought on the showing of credentials. There are skill sets available, how to online show the credentials, how they develop individually.
So I think the one thing that is missing oftentimes in research management trainings, I would say, is that there is no thought on credentials at all. And I think that's also what makes it so difficult for trainings to be portable and so on. And that's one thing we want to try with the handbook. Maybe not every training needs credentials, but what we hope most of the trainings will do is provide some sort of diploma supplement at the end, like by describing the learning outcomes and competences that the training is trying to aim at. And I think this is even more important than actually having credentials. Obviously, having credentials is very nice, but I think at the moment, the more practical approaches for the training providers hopefully start using more and more learning outcomes and describing what their training is about. Because I think this is the one thing that is actually easily understandable for everyone without the need of formal recognition and credentials, I would say. Obviously, that is also nice and helpful. But for now, I would advocate the first step to be that everybody uses learning outcomes and describes the working hours needed for training.
Thank you very much, Niklas. We, in the meantime, got an example from Bruno. So, I mean, one example for the handbook various trainings and skill set showcase is this equap.org that I'm not familiar with, but probably it's worth to check out. But definitely there are a number of interesting interesting examples. And I would say that in all these online and AI-based learning platforms and tools, these contents and these opportunities are just multiplying from one moment to another. So definitely these give a great boost for that. But we will definitely check this one as well, Bruno. Okay, do we have any other questions from the audience? If not, then I would just share again our availabilities. So I'm in the project website and where you can get access to the podcast. As said, we will have several other events as well that are already planned, either online, offline. And indeed, as this was said, if you want to deep dive on the content of the different project results, project outputs, on the whole process of the piloting, which is running currently, you are welcome to check out the podcast series, because each and every topic has a dedicated episode for that. I'm just looking at our speakers, whether you want to add any final word, any final saying to share with the audience. Niklas or Nick?
Yeah, please go, Niklas.
Yeah, I think my hope is that a lot of people will use the handbook and we use the competence framework, and that we get more standardization in this profession. That's my hope for the future. That's what I want to part with.
Definitely on that track. Yeah, Nick.
Yeah. I think also from my part, this is an effort, a movement, a community, right, that is trying to move forward. Is everything that is there ideal? And no, we're in a European context with very many different actors. So we need your help, your support to think about how to do this. Maybe at a national level, maybe at a European level, maybe within your organization, and see how you can work with this, how you can use this, how you can improve your work and the work of others around you, and ensure that we get this group of professionals to, well, don't get me wrong, in some cases there's excellent research management, in some cases there is very little, right? But we have to make sure that this becomes a better situation overall across Europe. And for that, I think we definitely, I think is a better word, need also the HR colleagues to be very mindful of this and to take actions in this and to work with the community.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nick. And just to add on that, I think we also shouldn't work in silos, so that there are many movements which are aiming the same but from different sides. So there are actions related to improving research careers, there are actions related to improve research assessment, open science, research infrastructures, and so on and so forth. So everything that is embedded now into the ERA policy agenda. And I think it is also important that these colleagues who are here have also a great overview of all these different actions and initiatives. And if we can do something jointly, that will definitely strengthen not only our institutions, but also this whole research and innovation ecosystem. So just checking the chat. I think these questions were mainly already answered, so I will direct all the colleagues to check out our websites and to follow us on social media to see when our events will take place and how can you learn more. For sure, we're regularly updating this information, so please follow us on LinkedIn as well, and you will get all the information about the upcoming events. And the recording and presentations will be also available on the website and also on the YouTube. So thank you a lot for joining us today, and let's see you either or in person, either online for the next events or any other related conferences and so on. Thank you and have a nice day. Goodbye.